If one pencil mark could change your future without you seeing it, would you even know where to argue? Stay with me. Before we start, tell me in the comments what city you're watching from and what time it is there right now. Let's see who's up late with us. St. Louis, autumn 1911. The big depot was all echo, steam, and shoe leather, but the quietest door in the building had frosted glass and the word ladies in a careful hand. Inside, a mirror ran the wall, and a velvet rope made a narrow aisle like a theater line that never moved. Gaslight hummed. Cold heat pressed the room flat. You could still hear the trains, but only as a soft knock behind the wall. Lena Ward stood under the lamp with her gloves still on. 23, dressmaker by trade, she was moving east because a landlord doubled the rent and because Chicago buyers paid on time. She carried one suitcase and a long folio, patterns, 4 reference letters, a rent receipt for a boarding room she had not seen yet, and a $5 deposit due Friday that she would lose if anything looked wrong. She also carried a folded note from her Aunt Millie in Cape Girardeau. It said Ruth's cough was worse and the pharmacy would not extend credit again. If Lena started clean this week, she could wire money next. The door opened and Matron Ellery came in with a ledger. She had the calm of a nurse who has already decided your case. A man followed, thin, watch chain, clerk's posture. He looked at the ledger first, not at Lena, and then at the clock as if time were one of his tools. Name, Ellery said. Lena Ward, Lena answered, handing her references like a student sliding a perfect copybook. Ellery did not read them. She handed them to the man. Mr. Pike, she said. Pike tucked the letters into a folder already tied with string. The tag on the string had 2 lines, city of origin and notes. He wrote the time before the city. He had the handwriting of a person who does not cross out. Have you used an association room before? Ellery asked. No, ma'am. Then I will be plain, Ellery said. Merchants, hotel desks, and certain societies ask for a short note that a traveler is of steady character. We do not list acts. We affirm fitness. It keeps trouble smaller. Clear? Yes, ma'am. Lena nodded because this floor did not belong to her. It was not an inspection. No measuring, no touching. Ellery watched how Lena held her gloves. Another woman, silent until then, looked at the hem and shoes like a person trained to guess wages from thread. Pike asked simple questions. Last employer, reason for leaving, where to work next. Chicago first, Lena said. Then perhaps Cleveland if I can keep a spot. Pike did not write Chicago. He wrote Rail District East. He pulled a small card from a case and set it where Lena could almost see it, square, thick, with a tiny printed grid and a faint stamped emblem like a temple front. He made one pencil mark in a box Lena could not read. Hold steady, Pike said. Ellery stepped close to see Lena's face from 3 angles. 30 seconds. No touching. The witness signed a line on the ledger. It felt like a bank, not a chapel. There is a small subscription, Ellery said. Not here. You will pay it in the receiving room when you arrive. They will confirm your notice. A notice? Lena asked. A letter, a color, and a pull mark, Pike said. 3 simple things, class of trade, a hue that sets where your file sits, and a mark that tells how often the file is checked. A porter tapped. A telegram envelope slid under the door. Ellery read it, tilted it toward Pike. He did not react. He tied the string on Lena's folder tighter. Bad news? Lena said before she could stop herself. News, Ellery said. A traveling secretary is in from Cincinnati tonight. He collects files going east. Your transfer will be faster than planned. She turned the ledger toward Lena, but let her see only a clean page of columns. "Spell your name." Lena spelled it. Pike stamped the card with a faint wash and drew a small diagonal at the bottom edge. He closed the folder and did not hand her a copy. "What does the color mean?" Lena asked. "It means you will be fine," Ellery said in a voice that carried iron. "If you keep steady, pay the small subscription at the receiving room and avoid situations that invite dispute. In Chicago, look for a room with a rose card in the window. They will know you're coming." "May I see the card?" Lena asked. "No," Ellery said. "We keep cards to prevent tampering. You will see the benefit in practice." Pike snapped the case shut. In that quiet room, with coal heat and soft voices, he was not a judge, but he decided something all the same. When Lena stepped out, the depot sound hit like weather. A newsboy shouted about municipal reform. A ticket punch clicked like a metronome. At the baggage counter, a man in a straw boater asked her destination and tagged the suitcase. As Lena turned, she saw Pike cross the concourse with his leather case, the kind with side buckles that say "documents" without saying it. He moved with the clearance of a person other men lean around. At the eastbound platform, the wind smelled like the river. A conductor walked a sealed mail pouch down the cars. 2 steps behind him came a man with a valise like Pike's, and that same quiet posture people use when what they carry matters more than they do. Lena watched them the way you watch a game whose rules you do not know yet. The bell rang. She climbed into the coach and took a window seat. The glass rattled. Across the aisle, a salesman rehearsed a pitch under his breath about hair tonic and faith. When the train lurched out, Lena pressed her palm to the window and told herself she had done the sensible thing. She had paid nothing, kept polite, followed the steps. Friday's deposit would be safe if Chicago opened even one door. Half an hour later, while the train slowed for a trestle, she went to the end platform to breathe. The night air tasted like iron. Below, in the freight yard, a switch crew rolled a crate with a half-nailed lid. A yard man read labels out loud because that was his habit. "Dental floss," he laughed. "Who seals floss?" "Army supply," another voice said. Calm, practiced. The kind of calm that pays rent. The crew pried the lid higher and lowered 2 leather cases inside. Someone thumbed a candle and smoothed a stripe of peppermint wax across the seam. A man with a pocket watch checked a timetable against the crate stencil as if the crate were a passenger. The lid went down. The wax cooled. The crate slid onto a secondary line marked "Delay." A uniform stepped around the corner with a lantern, and for a half-second the light found the faces at the crate. One of them, the man with the valise behind the mail pouch. No one flinched. He lifted a clipboard and pointed at a column like a teacher catching a child, copying the right answer. The uniform kept walking. Lena's breath fogged the glass. She did not understand what she had seen, but she understood 2 things. The men who carried letters and the men who carried ledgers walked the same tracks, and if a crate could be delayed on paper, a person could be delayed too. Back in her seat, she unfolded Aunt Millie's note again. Ruth's cough. The pharmacy. 50 cents for the association subscription in Chicago. $2 for a worst-case fix she could not afford if someone decided to recolor her card. If her file turned yellow, the boarding room would cash her deposit and fill the bed by supper. If the dress buyer tested her Friday and saw anything but blue or green, the wage would vanish like steam. The train eased into the city by dinner. Dearborn Street at noon was noise. Dearborn Street at night was a corridor of lamps and eyes. Far down the block, a small front window showed a rose card the same shade she had been told to find. A woman swept. A bell sat on the desk. The room behind looked like any back office in any shop, which was the point. Lena ate soup in a lunchroom that did not ask questions. At the boarding house, the landlady wrote her name in a book and held out Friday's deposit terms without looking up. "If the city likes you," the landlady said, "you'll be fine." It did not sound like comfort. It sounded like policy. In the next room, a typist coughed with a rhythm that matched the streetcar bell. Somebody said tomorrow would bring a city club committee to observe women's accommodations. Somebody else said committees always use soft voices until they asked for ledgers. The hat trimmer at the table laughed and said boys who confused tidiness with goodness were born with fountain pens. Lena set her folio on the bed and counted what she could stand to lose. The rent receipt? No. The references? No. The $5 for Friday? No. She slept with the folio under the pillow, face to the wall, and woke twice to the same thought. Somewhere a crate waited on a sideline because a man with a watch said waiting was tidy. She left early for the rose-card room to be first in the chair and to breathe before anyone gave her a color out loud. On the way, she passed the Orient House Hotel. A clerk with a careful part stood behind the desk and made the small, polite smile men practice when they decide whether to remember a face. He looked at her folio, not at her, then went back to his ledger. It was the same look Mr. Pike used when he wrote time first. At the receiving room door, a paper notice answered the only question anyone cared about. "Open." Lena pushed it and stepped into the square of quiet where a box of pigeonholes sat ready. A ledger waited with its neat columns, and a woman with steady eyes, Mrs. Keene, did not waste her nod. "Miss Ward from St. Louis," Keene said without looking down. "Sit. You made good time." Lena sat. The bell on the desk did not ring. The rose in the window held its color, like a promise a person would argue for if asked. Keene reached into the pigeonhole marked C and pulled a slim stack tied with string. At the center, a card waited with a faint wash across its grid. Keene placed it between them, half covered by her hand, and spoke as if they both were already busy. "There's a subscription due," she said. 50 cents. We'll talk about where you're staying and who thinks they can move your color. Then you'll go to your tryout and pin hems fast enough to show you belong." "Who thinks they can move my color?" Lena asked, because that was the only sentence that mattered. "Someone always does," Keene said, dry. "Your job is to make them write it down." She tapped the card's edge once with her pencil and lifted her eyes. "Let's start clean. Chicago does not ask who you are. It checks what you can prove in under a minute." The receiving room behind the milliner's shop looked ordinary on purpose. 2 chairs, a desk, a box of pigeonholes labeled with single letters, a ledger that matched every courthouse book you have seen in photographs. A small strip above the box showed 6 colors and 3 tiny pull marks. Mrs. Keene worked as if time were a tool. 50-cent subscription, she said, palm open. You'll get it back on your first steady week. Lena set the coins down. Boarding house deposit is due Friday. If I lose it, I sleep in the parlor. Then we keep you out of yellow, Keene said. Yellow triggers rules you cannot afford. Keene pulled the C-stack, untied the string, and placed a single card face up where Lena could see the grid. No secrets, just enough to teach. Read this once and remember, Keene said. Letter is class of trade. Hue is where you sit in the drawer. Pull mark is how often a desk checks you. She pointed in order. C means trade. Blue means not yet known. Review on arrival. Shallow diagonal means a desk takes a look on first day, then again only if asked. Green? Lena asked. 2 clean pulls and 1 endorsement that would make a bank nod, Keene said. White is society referral. Rare, mostly public relations. Yellow means attention needed. Orange means quarrels or credit disputes follow you around. Red is police or court. If you ever hear red, walk out and start fresh someplace that doesn't know your name. And the dot? Keene paused. The dot sits by the hue when someone with money can move it. People call it charity, committee work, donor fast track. In practice, it says, one person's signature can change your color. Do not let anyone place a dot on you. It sticks. Lena nodded. Who pulls the card? Hotel deskmen, hiring heads at reputable shops, some pastors, traveling secretaries like Mr. Pike, who move paperwork for people who hate surprises. Pulls are routine until someone decides to sell them. A bell tinkled in the shop out front. Keene did not look up. Rule 1, she said. You never hand out your reference letters without a receipt. Men collect real letters the way boys collect stamps. If a letter with your name floats through 3 desks, the 4th desk assumes you are for sale. The side door opened. A hotel clerk stepped in, the same careful part in his hair Lena had noticed at the Orient House. He carried a little book most men use to remember names they intend to forget. Morning, he said. Anything for the Orient today? Mrs. Barlow wants our list by lunch. Keene slid 3 cards from C. 1 green, 2 blue, no yellow. She tapped a blank pad. You can copy initials, no addresses without a request on paper. The clerk copied carefully, then glanced at Lena. He made the small smile deskmen use when they are deciding whether to remember you. We had a scene last week, he said. A drummer insulted a cashier. Barber threw him out. Mrs. Barlow prefers blue files away from the dining room for now. Blue is not fragile, Keene said. It is unknown. Seat unknowns where they can become known without interruption. The clerk accepted the correction like sugar he did not need, closed his book, and nodded to Lena, as if they already knew each other. If you want to try out, come Friday at 4 to the dress buyer's counter, he said. You'll pin under pressure. That's what he pays for. He left the way-trained staff leave, with no extra movement that could be remembered later. When the door clicked, Keene turned back to the card. She added a locator notation, room confirmed, fee paid, initial pull, quiet. Rule 2, she said. If a desk claims your hue just changed and he can move it back for a fee or a favor, you ask for a receipt. Thieves hate paper. He will try that? Lena asked. Probably today, Keene said. Yellow creates work for him and takes choices from you. It also pushes you to a different set of tables at supper. That is how small shames grow. You do not buy color. You earn it, and we record it. The side door opened again. A young woman in a gray coat stepped in with the look of someone who has been corrected in public. Miss Abbott, Keene said. Sit. Miss Abbott stayed standing. The reading room marked me yellow, she said. A buyer's wife accused me of being too familiar in a parlor. Keene pulled the Abbott file from a different pigeonhole. A tiny dot sat by yellow. Keene did not show the card. She read, then set it face down. Who placed the dot? Church counselor, Miss Abbott said. He said it would make me green for the holidays if I joined a donors circle. Then I attended a theater party his friends hosted. Now the wife talks. Keene's face did not change. Write a letter of apology for crowding her shoulder. Bring the reply if she sends one. We will add a courtesy note. Lay low for a month. The dot is the bigger problem. Never let another man place one for you." Miss Abbott nodded and left with instructions that sounded like repair, not punishment. Keene waited until the latch caught. "That is how reputations travel," she said. "Not with speeches, with tiny marks and favors written in pencil." She pushed an index card toward Lena. "This is for you. If anyone tries to sell you a change, you hand him this and ask him to fill it out. Amount, policy, signature. If he refuses, you walk." Pike appeared in the doorway with the calm of someone who never arrives late. "You may not have to walk," he said. "Some men will write rather than risk a scene. If he writes, keep it flat and dry. Names on paper move faster than sermons." Lena put the blank receipt in her folio. She reviewed the rules as if they were a pattern she had to cut cleanly the first time. Pay the fee here, guard the letters, no dot, receipts for everything. At noon, she tested the rules. The Orient House lobby smelled like polish and money that belongs to other people. The pianist worked through a waltz at half speed. The desk man with the careful part nodded at her approach as if she had arrived on his schedule. "Miss Ward," he said, "your file passed through this morning. There's a revision." "What kind?" "Only a hue adjustment," he said, lowering his voice to make it sound delicate. "District recalibration. Conservative ladies in St. Louis sometimes mark blue where green would be fair. Then there are days they do the opposite. Today, you're yellow." "Show me," Lena said. "We never show cards," he said with the gentle authority of a policy that protects him, not her. "Prevents tampering, but I can help. An orientation fee marks you for second review and returns you to blue by Friday. If you want green next week, there's a donors circle, 2 teas, and a church sewing afternoon, and a sponsor moves you promptly." "How much is the orientation fee?" $2, he said, like a man quoting the price of bread. "You'll be fine by Friday if we act now." Lena took out Keene's blank receipt and set it on the marble. "Write the amount and the policy," she said, "so the shop can reimburse me if they hire me." The desk man hesitated, surprised by a rule he did not control. He wrote, "Orientation fee, 2 bars aux euros, then per desk policy." He signed with his first name only, a curled shape that said nothing to a payroll clerk. "Pay here," he said. Lena placed 2 silver dollars on the counter and did not let go. "What is my color right now?" "Yellow," he said, smiling correctly. "After you write, you will show me the card move," she said. "We never show cards," he repeated, laugh ready, voice even. "You'll only worry." "I prefer to watch pencils," Lena said, and let the dollars go. He bent under the counter, pulled a stack, palmed a yellow, set a blotter over it, and pretended to write. His pencil made no mark. He slid the yellow into a lower stack and lifted a blue from the top with the same motion. "All set," he said. "Return Friday." Lena did not argue. She folded the signed slip, walked out, and did not slow until she reached the rose card room. She handed Keene the paper. Keene held it to the lamp. "Cheap hotel pencil has a shine." She nodded once. Pike did not waste words. He put the slip into an envelope to the hotel owner and wrote a second note in a straighter hand to the City Club finance chair, the man who loves columns more than crusades. He did not accuse the club of anything. He asked a single question, whether the club approved of donors' circles that exchanged social hours for color. "Now what?" Lena asked. "Now you work," Keene said. Friday, you pin clean under pressure and get a line from the buyer with his name on it. Do not ask him to praise your charm. Ask him to confirm punctual work. Courts like punctual. Will that make me green? 2 clean pulls and 1 solid endorsement move any honest file to green, Keene said. We will make sure the pull history reads the way it happened, not the way a clerk wishes it did. Before Lena could answer, a messenger boy slid a telegram through the side door. Committee to observe ladies' rooms. This afternoon. Stop requested. Access to records. Stop. Keene read it once and put it under the ledger. They will ask to see cards, she said. They will not. We are revising symbols today. That is true enough and useful. Do you move the cards when they visit? Sometimes, Keene said, not to hide crimes, to prevent men who like the sound of their own clean hands from knocking over a system they do not understand. Paper moves slower than speeches. We keep it safe. The rest of the afternoon demonstrated exactly how slow paper should move. Keene explained rules to 2 hiring heads, signed 2 receipts for copied references, and blocked 1 attempt by a society lady to endorse a niece she had met twice. Signatures are not wishes, Keene said without heat. Endorse only what you would repeat to a judge. The lady signed nothing and left offended at the lack of theater. Near closing, the Orient owner's envelope came back faster than pride likes. It included $4, an apology crafted by a man who owned rugs and did not intend to roll them up for any committee, and a statement that the hotel would honor blue files without expediting contributions. He did not mention green. He did not mention donors. He wanted the subject to disappear. Return the cash, Keene told the bellboy. Tell him to put it toward housekeeping wages this week and to send me that in writing. The boy left with a look that said he would remember this errand when he was old. Lena watched Keene update the locator on her line. Desk, not in transit, then stamp the day clean. What if the desk man tries this again on someone else? He will not tonight, Pike said. Tomorrow he will work somewhere that does not allow receipts. Will anyone be punished? Quiet men with money will punish him, Pike said, not because of virtue, because receipts are bad for business. At supper, the boarding house table hummed. The typist, the hat trimmer, a laundress with burn marks on her wrists. When Lena said she had an appointment Friday, the landlady told her to eat a second roll. You'll need your hands, she said. Buy pins tomorrow, good ones. If a buyer makes you repin a curve 3 times, he is not testing the cloth. He is testing you. Lena fell asleep quickly and woke once to the click of shoes under the window. She thought of the crate marked floss and of peppermint wax that made a seal look official. She promised herself one simple thing. Every change to her name would live on paper she could fold flat and show to someone who mattered. Friday came with steady rain. The dress buyer did exactly what the landlady predicted. He handed Lena a skirt, watched her pin a long curve, then told her to undo it and do it again. He counted pins 1 by 1 at the end to see if she had kept her line under pressure. He said little, signed a single sentence on shop paper. Miss Ward kept a clean line during fitting, and told her to return Monday. She took the signed line to Keene, who slid it into the file and stamped a green wash on a clean card with the same motion as yesterday's clerk, but with the mark actually touching paper. There, Keene said. Green is not a crown. It's a door that opens without extra talk. Keep it open for 6 months, and you won't think about colors anymore. Lena nodded, lighter in a way you can measure. The boarding house deposit safe, Aunt Millie's pharmacy bill possible, the tryout real. She put the buyer's line beside the desk man's receipt in her folio. 2 papers, 2 futures, the one she earned and the one she stopped from being sold. Late afternoon, the City Club published a soft paragraph about irregularities and clearer policies. They did not name a single person. The Orient posted a staff notice that all adjustments must carry receipts. The desk man with the careful part left by the back door holding his pocket watch, like a small apology. At dusk, Keene closed the rose card room and checked the pigeonholes one more time. Miss Abbott's file sat where she had left it. The yellow would fade after a clean month if no one bought her time with a dot. Keene wrote a small internal note, courtesy letter in progress, and locked the drawer. Out on Dearborn, a streetcar sparked and moved on. Inside the shop, the gas light ticked as it cooled. Keene turned the key twice and kept it in her pocket. Lena crossed the street with pins still in her cuff and a folded paper in her folio that said she had not dreamed this week. The warning arrived, wrapped as praise. A City Club circular thanked ladies' rooms for their civic spirit and requested a brief look at procedures and records before supper. Committees that use soft words ask for hard things. They would not preach. They would inventory. By 2 o'clock, 3 deskmen crossed the loop without hats, which told you how urgent it was. At the Orient House, the manager locked his guest ledger and called it a night diary. In the rose card room, Mrs. Keene slid the pigeonhole box into a canvas wrap, put a spool of ribbon on top, and set it in a hatter's bag. She kept her voice flat and her hands quick. Panic creates duplicates. Duplicates create trouble. "Messenger," she told the boy at the alley door, "find Harrow at the freight side. Say the sewing club meets tonight. If he asks how many members, hold up 5 fingers." The boy repeated it back and ran. Pike arrived with a timetable and a case that looked like it belonged in any office and every courtroom. Harrow followed, freight foreman eyes, a scar across one knuckle from working a break late. "1 transfer, 2 shadows," Harrow said, checking the alley mouth. "Car 124, crate marked floss. We seal with peppermint wax. City Club men trust paper strips. They do not know the taste of wax." "And hotel ledgers?" Pike asked. "Each house keeps its own sin," Harrow said. "We're moving district files, not guest books. If they bring a judge, we lose. If they bring a reporter, we waste their evening." Keene debated 3 seconds, then pulled 2 folders out of the C slot and a thin booklet labeled District Symbols, Winter Revision. She added a slip to Lena's locator line, In Transit. It was both a truth and a shield. They moved like people carrying nothing. That was the only safe way to carry anything. At the freight platform, a pair of porters rolled out crate 124 with the lid half nailed to pass for "in process." Keene lowered the canvas-wrapped box in. Pike added 2 cases stamped with a meaningless insurance crest. Harrow warmed a spoon over a candle and smoothed a stripe of peppermint wax across the seam until it shone like a cheap idea of honesty. "Inbound to Southside Yard," Harrow told the porter. "Delay stamp. Let it sit on the secondary line till midnight." The porter, paid to remember the line and forget the content, nodded. Across town, the committee started at a mission parlor run by a ladies' aid circle that had adopted the rating system late and loved it too hard. The president, Mrs. Albright, stacked cards by color the way some people stack hymnals by key. "We keep girls safe," she said, tapping a yellow that glowed like a warning candle. The junior reformer with the neat cuffs wrote quickly, excited by a system he could memorize in an afternoon and control by evening. At the Orient House, a younger inspector practiced his reasonable smile at the front desk. The clerk with the careful part met him with the same smile from the other side of the counter. "Just looking at procedures," the inspector said. "Just following policy," the clerk said. When the inspector asked whether colors could be adjusted for promising cases, the clerk lifted his palms and said the word orientation with a tone that made it sound like kindness. Back at Dearborn, Keene did not wait for knocks. She turned the key, set one lamp low, and left the front room staged. Bell centered, ledger closed, chairs square. She carried the second satchel to a secondary room down a back stair where a piano teacher rented afternoons and a widow ran laundry slips at night. The point was not to hide evidence. The point was to keep men who like tidy noises from dropping whole boxes to hear them shatter. 8 car lengths, the messenger panted, skidding into the alley. "Harrow says hold until the 10:30 shunt." Keene sent him out with a wrapped sandwich for Ellery in St. Louis, then stopped herself. Ellery would not eat until this was over. A telegraph ticked in the corner. Pike read the strip as it came. City Club asked Ellery for index stop. She showed blank book, stop 2 names requested, pull if found stop. Pike passed the strip to Keene. 2 names, not 10, meant someone on the committee had a grudge or a promise to keep. "Which names?" Keene asked. "Ellery won't put that on a wire," Pike said. "She'll write it on the envelope flap and send the flap in a shoe." They did not laugh. They both had seen shoes do that. The committee's 5th stop was a receiving room that looked like an insurance desk and behaved like one. "We affirm character," Keene told them evenly when they reached hers. "We do not investigate it. A letter, a color, and a pull mark so the city can function without stories." The chairman, a trim man who lived to turn nouns into policy, asked to see the cards. "In transit," Keene said. That was also true. "The district revises symbols twice each winter," she added. That was true when they needed it to be. A younger inspector tried the sharp question. "Do you accept money to move color?" "We accept subscriptions," Keene said. "We accept endorsements signed by names a judge would not laugh at. We accept corrections proved by paper. We do not sell hue." "Not sell," he said, pleased with himself. "Move." "If someone tells you a dot can move anything," Keene said, "ask him why he wants you to believe it." He wrote that down because it sounded like a confession and because he did not know yet that some warnings are instructions for decent people, not crooks. Near dusk, the yard bell rang for a shunt. Crate 124 slid 3 feet to a line no committeeman would think to check. A porter switched the tag from delay to delivery. Warehouse, Monroe. He whistled a tune a pastor would disapprove of and wheeled past a watchman who believed paperwork more than faces. Inside the warehouse, that nobody mentioned unless somebody owed money there, Harrow cracked the lid with a dull bar. The wax lifted clean. The canvas-wrapped box came out looking like hats and behaved like lives. Pike checked stamps and edges with a watchmaker's care. Keene sorted by class first, then hue, then pull marks. She tossed duplicates into a burn bag and kept the pulls that could be defended in a room with a judge. When she reached a thin card that did not belong to any file, a yellow with a dot and no name, she held it to the light and scraped the edge with her nail. Grit. The Orient's blade left that grit when it wobbled. Someone had planted a card on them to slide into someone else's file later and justify the price. "Orient," she said. Pike nodded once. "Desk man who likes donors' circles," he said. "He copied initials this morning, like wallpaper." Keene set the stray yellow aside and pulled Lena's stack. Blue, shallow diagonal pull. Locator, in transit. That saved it. If it had been sitting at a desk, a practiced palm could have slipped the planted yellow into the folder and drawn a pencil through her week. "What happens if they push my file?" Lena asked from the doorway. She had come on Pike's note, "Bring nothing you cannot afford to lose," and kept her voice steady by force. "The boarding house eats my deposit. The buyer drops Friday. My aunt does not get money for the pharmacy." She said it like measurements. That made it heavier. Keene did not soften it. "Yes, and if they sell you a quick correction for $2, you pay twice. Once now, once in How People Talk. The dot sticks." "What do we do?" "We put proof on paper," Pike said. "Men who love order will punish their own when you hand them columns." Keene took a blank receipt slip from her drawer and wrote orientation fee across the top, then left space. "You hand him this and ask him to fill it out, amount, policy, and his name. If he refuses, walk. If he writes, bring it here. No speech. Paper." They put the crate back under peppermint seal and sent it out again with a delay to make the paper trail look natural. Keene returned to the front room and staged calm. The committee came through, asked questions they had prepared to ask, and left with answers that sounded like rules because they were. On their way out, the younger inspector tried one more dig. "Do you ever mark blue when green would be fair?" "Every room errs on the safe side the first week," Keene said. "Harm done by caution can be fixed. Harm done by speed cannot." Across town, the Ladies' Aid Circle showed off its boxes like trophies. Mrs. Albright moved a finger down a list and told a reformer she could smell impropriety the way some people smell rain. In the hall, a girl waited with a good coat and a soup basket. She thought the visit was about soup. It was about signatures. In St. Louis, Ellery faced 2 City Club men who mistook handwriting for guilt. She handed them an empty index, the way a lawyer hands a statute. Polite, complete, unhelpful. When they asked for 2 specific names, she asked for proper authority. When they said civic spirit, she said records retention, and they left with a paragraph of notes and no card. After they were gone, she wrote the requested names in pencil on the inside flap of an envelope, tore off the flap, and sent it in a shoe to Pike. 9:30. A saloon phonograph played a march too bright for the hour. The Orient deskman leaned on his marble, watched rain bead on the front steps, and practiced the sentence he planned to sell. "It is not a reflection on you." At 10, Lena walked in with empty pockets and a steady voice. "Miss Ward," he said, pleased to remember her. "Your file passed through. There's a small recalibration. You're yellow for the moment. I can help." He lowered his voice. "Orientation fee, $2. Back to blue before Friday. Donor's Circle can move you to green next week. 2 teas, a sewing afternoon. Everyone is happier." "Write it," Lena said, setting Keene's blank slip on the counter. "Amount and policy. My shop reimburses new hires if there's paper." He hesitated, then wrote, "Orientation fee, 2 Bauders euro per desk policy." He signed only his first name, curled into deniable ink. "Pay here," he said. She placed the coins and did not let go. "Show me the card move," she said. "We never show cards," he replied with the trained laugh. "I prefer to watch pencils," she said, and let the money go. He palmed a yellow from the lower stack, set a blotter over it, and pretended to write. Then he swapped a blue from the upper stack with a motion he must have practiced in boys' games. "All set," he said, pleased with his own neatness. Lena left without correcting him. By 10:30, the yard bell rang, crate 124 slid again, and Harrow replaced the delay with delivery. Warehouse, Monroe, then changed Monroe to a number only Pike would recognize. At 11, a hotel boy delivered an envelope to the Rose Card room with $4 and an apology written by a man who liked rugs more than truth. Keene handed the cash back. "Put it in housekeeping wages," she told the boy. "Send me that in writing." She waited until the door closed, then opened the canvas wrapper in the back room and froze. Between C and H, someone had tucked a thin card, yellow, dot, Orient's blade grit on the edge. It carried no name yet. It was a tool waiting for a target. Pike looked once. "Which desk?" "Hotel hand," Keene said. "He thinks ink is the system." "And now?" "Now," Keene said, "we find whose file he aimed at before morning." Morning made last night look reasonable. Streetcars sparked the same. The fruit man lied about sweetness the same. The City Club printed a polite note in the paper about irregularities, which meant they had found nothing they could carry into court. In the warehouse on Monroe, Harrow pried open crate 124 with a dull bar, lifted the peppermint seal in one piece, and set the canvas-wrapped pigeonholes on a table that still smelled like twine and dust. Pike checked edges and stamps like a watchmaker. Keene sorted fast, not sloppy. Class first, then hue, then pull marks. Duplicates went into the burn bag. Anything that could be defended in front of a judge stayed. When she reached the planted yellow with the dot, the one tucked between C and H, she held it to the window and scraped the edge with her nail again. Grit from the Orient's wobbly blade. No name on the face. Then she turned it over and saw what the planter had hidden in the margin with a faint pencil. A, B, T, 3 letters spaced like fence posts. "Abbott," Keene said. He aimed at Miss Abbott. "Because a buyer's wife complained," Pike said. Yellow would make the complaint look like policy. Keene set the stray yellow far from Abbott's real card and pulled Lena's file next. Blue, shallow diagonal pull, locator back to desk. Clean. She put both files in a small stack labeled Handle First and closed the canvas. At noon, the Rose Card room opened on time. Keene laid the ledger flat and waited for the day to bring its excuses. The first was wrapped as charity. A church counselor with polished manners asked if the board would consider a donor's review on Miss Abbott to clear the air quickly. He signed his name with the ease of a man who had not yet learned the price of ink. "We consider receipts," Keene said, and slid across a copy of the Orient clerk's note to Lena. Orientation fee, 2 pars oro per desk policy. "You know this hand?" The counselor's face did a small thing, like a shirt collar tightening. "That is a hotel matter," he said. "Not ours." "Your dot makes hotel matters look like ours," Keene said. "You placed it. Remove it in writing." He started a sentence that used the word misunderstanding twice. Keene set a blank slip in front of him and tapped the line for signature. He signed, smaller this time. She marked the dot void and wrote a locator note. Dot retracted by sponsor. Courtesy letter pending. 5 minutes later, a hotel boy in livery brought the Orient owner's second apology and a sheet for housekeeping wages with 4 $1 bills pinned to it. Keene made him read the sheet out loud, then had him sign a receipt saying he had read it. "Tell your employer this room likes paper," she said. The boy smiled the way boys do when they plan to remember a sentence for the rest of their lives. Lena arrived next, rain on her sleeves, the buyer's line in her folio. "He wrote it," she said, and slid the paper across. Miss Ward kept a clean line during fitting. The signature under it was a name bank's answer on the first ring. Keene stamped a green wash on a clean card and clipped the buyer's line to the file. "Green opens doors without extra talk," she said. "Keep it steady for 6 months, and you will forget about colors." "Will Miss Abbott be all right?" Lena asked. "If we move faster than the story," Keene said. "Today, not next week." They did not wait for the story to grow legs. Pike walked the Orient slip to the owner's office himself, not with a threat, but with a ledger page that showed a simple math: $2 multiplied by a week, then by a month, then by a season. "You can keep a clerk who sells changes," he said, "or you can keep the accounts that hate seeing their names near receipts like this." The owner, a man who loved columns more than causes, understood the math. The desk man with the careful part left by the back door before supper with his pocket watch and a frown built for self-pity. Keene went a different route. She carried Miss Abbott's file to the ladies' aid circle and asked for Mrs. Albright. The president arrived with the stride of someone used to moving furniture with instructions. Keene said nothing about donors or dots. She set down the buyer's wife's complaint, the apology letter Miss Abbott had written that morning, 2 lines, precise, no groveling, and the counselor's retraction with his signature twice. "Endorse what you can say in front of a judge," Keene said. "Nothing more." Mrs. Albright read, lips tight. Her first instinct was to defend her circle's noses. Her second was to preserve the circle's authority. Authority survives by correcting itself before someone else does. She signed a courtesy endorsement that cleared the yellow and added the sentence, "Miss Abbott is steady in public rooms." Keene stamped Abbott's file blue without a dot and set a locator review in 1 month. "If she keeps clean pulls," Keene said, "we move her to green with a real endorsement. No teas required." Back at Dearborn, a City Club man with neat cuffs stopped in to collect a summary for his committee. He found none of the drama he had imagined last night. The desk looked like a desk. The ledger looked like a ledger. Keene handed him exactly 3 items: a policy sheet that required receipts for any adjustment, a list of rooms that already did so, and a short note signed by 4 hotel owners agreeing to the same rule to avoid confusion. It was everything the club could have asked for if what it wanted was order instead of headlines. "You move quickly," he said, impressed with his own sentence. "We write quickly," Keene said. "That is the work." At 4, Lena returned to the shop for a second fitting. The buyer made her repin a curve he had changed his mind about, then timed her unpin. He did not say he had seen any color. He did not need to. The work in front of him was green enough. "Monday," he said, "bring your own shears, not the fancy kind, the kind that close clean." When Lena left, a typist from the boarding house was waiting by the rose car door, clutching a reference letter like it might run away. "They want to copy this," the typist said. "No receipt." "Then you tell them your room does receipts," Keene said, and handed her a pad with the room stamp. "People who fear paper do not deserve your name." At dusk, Miss Abbott stepped into the receiving room with a face that expected bad news and did not get it. Keene showed her nothing theatrical, no reveal, no speech. She stamped the yellow clear, set the dot to void, and read the courtesy line Mrs. Albright had signed. "Keep a quiet parlor for a month," Keene said, "and bring me 1 signature from a paying room. Then we go green, and it sticks." Miss Abbott nodded. "Thank you," she said, not weeping, not breaking, just taking back a week that almost got sold out from under her. They could have ended the day there. The work was done. But the system had one more lesson to teach, and it was better that Lena see it. A woman in a fine hat arrived after closing, tapping the desk with a gloved finger that said she was used to people moving when she pointed. She produced an endorsement request for a niece of good family, with 2 teas this month and a charity matinee. "We can move her to green, yes?" she asked, already sure of the answer. "Blue first," Keene said. 2 clean pulls, 1 real signature. "You do not know our name," the woman said. "I know your niece's work history," Keene said. "It is 3 weeks long and mostly conversations." The woman's mouth set. "I will speak to the City Club," she said. "You should," Keene said. "They like receipts." The woman left with a sound like furniture dragging. Lena laughed once, quiet, because relief has to leave the body somehow. Keene let the laugh live and then locked the drawer. Night settled in. Pike sent 2 wires, files cleaned, stop receipts in place, stop dots, void when sponsor retracts, and received 2 answers that mattered. Ellery wrote, "Index safe. Stop committee, tired, stops and symbol revision when printed." The City Club finance chair wrote, "Appreciate clarity. Stop policy. Note, adopted for circular stop." Neither man used the word victory. People who keep systems running do not. Lena walked back to the boarding house with a green card in her file, a buyer's line in her folio, and $2 she had paid, still recorded in a handwriting that could now be used to protect the next woman who got the same offer. The landlady made her eat a second roll again and told her to keep her rent receipt flat between Bible pages because roaches eat everything else. The typist pinned a new ribbon in her hair and practiced asking for receipts out loud until it sounded like memory. Before sleep, Lena took out Aunt Millie's note and wrote a reply with coins wrapped in paper. Sent first week's help. More after Monday. She added 1 line she had earned this week. I learned to trust paper. She sealed the envelope and put it by the door for the morning post. In the rose card room, Keene turned the key, stood in the dark a moment, and measured the day. They had not toppled a machine. They had made small gears honest. That is how cities live, not by drama, but by receipts. She put the stray Orient yellow into a folder marked Training Copy, Show Clerks, and wrote across it in big flat letters, Do not sell color. Then she blew out the lamp. On Monroe, Harrow hammered the crate lid back on, pocketed the spoon he used for wax, and walked home to a room that smelled like rope and coffee. Pike sat at his table with a timetable, a pencil, and a habit of sleeping light. He checked off names that would not know anything had changed because they would simply find doors opening at the usual speed. That was the point. The city exhaled. The files that had been bought clean were back where they belonged. The attempt to sell 1 woman's week had been turned into paper, with a name, a policy, and a cost. Tomorrow another clerk somewhere would try the same trick. Tomorrow someone like Keene would put a slip in front of him and say, "Write it down." That was the balance. It was not grand. It worked.